Joseph Goebbels was Nazi Germany's Minister of Propaganda. He engineered mass psychological manipulation via fake news, controlled media, and propaganda films. He played a central role in promoting Hitler as a savior of Europe and in spreading anti-Semitism and anti-Bolshevik narratives. Goebbels joined the Nazi Party in the 1920s and rose quickly, becoming Gauleiter of Berlin. He launched Der Angriff, a party newspaper, and used large posters, violence, and speeches to push Nazi messaging. Later, he was elected to parliament and began experimenting with silent films and radio. As propaganda minister, Goebbels oversaw broadcasting, film, press, arts, censorships, and youth indoctrination. He staged mass parades, burned books, and flooded cinemas with propaganda, such as the footage of the 1933 Bebelplatz book burning, where 25,000 books by Jewish authors were destroyed. He was also a master of visual trickery, using techniques such as staging and manipulation of images to create fake news. He censored foreign content, including American films, though Hitler kept copies privately. He purged the German film industry of dissent, blacklisting actors who refused to support Nazi policies, and ensured all cinematic output aligned with regime goals. One example was the film I Accuse, which justified the Aktion T4 euthanasia program. Goebbels played a key role in orchestrating Kristallnacht in November 1938, inciting anti-Semitic violence by directing propaganda and coordinating with SA leaders to unleash pogroms across Germany. He pushed for total war by 1943, advocating full mobilization of resources and labor, freeing 500,000 men for the Wehrmacht. As the war turned, Goebbels' influence faded. Allied bombings weakened his control, rival agencies grew, and his propaganda lost impact. Eventually, he encouraged elderly men and boys to die for the Reich and adopted an apocalyptic tone in his final speeches. By March 1945, his ministry was bombed. Though he regained control in April, it was too late. Berlin was under siege, and defeat was certain. Alfred Rosenberg was a Baltic German and one of the chief theorists behind Nazi ideology and the Lebensraum policy. He believed Jews had triggered the Russian Revolution and saw a global conspiracy behind events like the Communist Revolt in Munich. He joined the Aufbauvereinigung, a nationalist group opposing the Soviet regime and promoting German cooperation with Baltic regions. Rosenberg became an early Nazi leader, editing the party newspaper Völkischer Beobachter, opposed modern art and the Treaty of Versailles. While Hitler was in prison, Rosenberg kept Nazi ideology alive by founding the Großdeutsche Volksgemeinschaft. He also helped lead the Nordische Gesellschaft, pushing the myth of Germanic racial superiority. He published The Myth of the 20th Century, a central Nazi text promoting Aryan supremacy, anti-Semitism, and the belief that Jews had corrupted Europe. Rosenberg led the NSDAP Office of Foreign Affairs and headed the Amt Rosenberg, which shaped Nazi cultural policy, banned books, and promoted German nationalism. He also pushed for new imperial regions like Ostland to control the Baltics and parts of Belarus. Governing occupied eastern territories, where he spread Nazi propaganda, was his key role. He oversaw the Kirchenkampf, an effort to weaken the influence of traditional Christian churches while promoting positive Christianity, a version of Christianity stripped of Jewish roots and traditional doctrine. In April 1945, he was captured by the British and executed in 1946. William Joyce, known as Lord Ha-Ha, was an American-born fascist who became a key English-language broadcaster for Nazi Germany. After moving from New York to England, he joined Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists and rose to Director of Propaganda by 1934, known for his fiery speeches and comparisons to Hitler. At the outbreak of World War II, Joyce fled to Germany and took Nazi citizenship. He began working for German radio, and delivering English broadcasts meant to demoralize the British. His broadcasts, famous for opening with "Germany Calling," included pro-Nazi propaganda, exaggerated reports of Allied losses, and attacks on Churchill, whom he claimed was a servant of international Jewish finance. He also called for the British to surrender. At his peak, he had around 6 million listeners. Joyce gave lectures to SS members on British fascism and attempted to recruit captured British soldiers into the British Free Corps, part of the Waffen-SS. He also published a book praising Nazi Germany and condemning British capitalism, earning him the War Merit Cross. He was eventually captured by the British and executed for high treason. He showed no remorse and used his final words to warn Britain about the Soviet Union. Otto Dietrich was an SS officer who controlled much of the regime's media. He joined the Nazi Party early as Hitler's personal press officer, helping secure industrial funding through his contracts. In 1934, he was appointed Reich Press Chief. His role was to oversee all Nazi Party publications, including those targeting the SS, SA, Hitler Youth, and the German Labor Front. Dietrich also summarized press telegrams for Hitler and edited his speeches for publication, functioning as a key conduit between Hitler and Goebbels. Dietrich's influence overlapped with Goebbels' propaganda ministry, leading to frequent clashes. He saw himself as the ultimate authority and tried to reduce Goebbels' control, with both of them often undoing each other's work. Hitler later accused him of defeatism and suspended him. Dietrich was captured by the British, convicted for spreading anti-Semitic propaganda, and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Julius Streicher was Gauleiter of Franconia, best known for publishing Der Stürmer, a violently anti-Semitic newspaper central to Nazi propaganda. It reached 600,000 in circulation, regularly portraying Jews as subhuman, demonic, and predatory toward German women. Streicher blamed Jews for Germany's economic problems and organized the 1933 boycott of Jewish businesses. His publishing house also targeted German children with anti-Semitic books like The Poisonous Mushroom and Trust No Fox, which framed Jews as liars and devils. However, Streicher was seen by many Nazis as vulgar, unstable, and self-serving. His personality, corruption, and sexual misconduct earned him nicknames like Beast of Franconia. But he was protected by Hitler, who called Der Stürmer his favorite paper. In 1938, Streicher ordered the demolition of Nuremberg's Grand Synagogue because he didn't like the architecture. During Kristallnacht, his Gau saw forced property seizures, enriching Streicher personally. Streicher was later accused of spreading false rumors about Göring and other officials, adultery, and erratic behavior. He was then declared unfit for leadership and removed from office in 1940. He was eventually executed by hanging. William Dudley Pelley was an American fascist and founder of the Silver Legion, a paramilitary anti-Semitic group inspired by Hitler. After serving with the Red Cross during the Russian Civil War and aiding White Russian forces, he developed a deep hatred of communism and adopted a belief in a global Jewish conspiracy. The same year Hitler rose to power, Pelley launched the Silver Legion. Members called Silver Shirts or Christian Patriots promoted anti-Semitism, anti-communism, isolationism, and Christian nationalism. Pelley toured the US, forming chapters in nearly every state. By 1935, the group had 15,000 members. Through publications like Liberation and The Galilean, Pelley pushed conspiracy theories and extremist policies. In his book No More Hunger, he called for universal income for white citizens, caps on wealth, re-enslavement of black Americans, and sterilization and segregation of Jews. He opposed Roosevelt and the New Deal, framing them as part of a Jewish plot, and even ran for president in 1936 under the Christian Party. He proposed turning the US into a corporation with white Christians as shareholders. Even after Pearl Harbor, Pelley kept publishing anti-government content, accusing Roosevelt of warmongering. In 1942, he was convicted of seditious conspiracy and sentenced to 15 years. Johann von Leers was one of the Third Reich's key ideologues. A National Socialist since 1929, he was active in Völkisch politics during the Weimar era and led the National Socialist Students' League. In 1933, he pledged loyalty to Hitler and joined Goebbels' propaganda ministry, where he wrote 27 books and numerous anti-Semitic articles. As a professor, Leers was known for extreme anti-Jewish polemics and contributed to the journal Die Judenfrage, portraying Judaism and Islam as ideological opposites and praising Islam's history while vilifying Jews. After Germany's defeat, Leers fled to Argentina, where he continued his Nazi propaganda through the publication Der Weg. Later, he went to Egypt, where he converted to Islam, took the name Omar Amin, and became a political advisor under President Nasser. There, he ran anti-Israeli propaganda, headed the Institute for the Study of Zionism, and continued his ideological warfare. Fritz Julius Kuhn was a German-born Nazi activist and leader of the German-American Bund, a pro-Nazi group in the US before World War II. Naturalized as a US citizen, he later lost his citizenship for acting as a foreign agent of Nazi Germany. Kuhn claimed the Bund was only sympathetic to Hitler's government and denied direct ties or funding. He promoted anti-Semitic, anti-communist, pro-German and nationalist propaganda to recruit German Americans, and even led a group of followers to Germany to witness the regime firsthand. Upon return, he falsely claimed Hitler had called him American Führer. Kuhn worked with George Sylvester Viereck, a pro-Nazi propagandist funded by Germany to spread anti-Allied messaging through publications like The Fatherland. In 1938, the Nazi government distanced itself, banning German nationals from the Bund and forbidding the use of Nazi symbols. Undaunted, Kuhn led a rally in New York with 20,000 attendees, mocking President Roosevelt as Frank Rosenfeld, denouncing the New Deal as the Jew Deal, and delivering racist and anti-Semitic rants. Kuhn was convicted of larceny and forgery, serving serious prison time. Max Amann was the head of Nazi publishing and a key figure in controlling Germany's press. As president of the Reich Press Chamber, he enforced Nazi censorship by requiring all editors to be racially pure and banning Jews and non-Nazis from journalism. Amann led the Nazi Party's sole publishing house, Ehr Verlag. He published major Nazi papers like Völkischer Beobachter, Die Brennnessel, and the SS magazine Das Schwarze Korps. Through the 1933 Editor's Law and the power to shut down or seize non-compliant newspapers, Amann created a monopoly. He acquired rival publications cheaply under the guise of forced auctions. Amann profited enormously from Mein Kampf and Nazi publishing, making both himself and Hitler wealthy. He also oversaw the Aryanization of Jewish-owned publishers and ensured all content aligned with Nazi ideology, working together with Goebbels. After the war, Amann was sentenced to 10 years in a labor camp and lost his fortune. Fritz Hippler was a Nazi filmmaker and head of the film department under Joseph Goebbels. He joined the Nazi Party at age 17 and became active in the National Socialist German Students' League. Later, he held a student march that ended in a public book burning. Hitler's most infamous work was The Eternal Jew, a propaganda documentary portraying Jews as subhuman and animal-like, used to justify extermination and train SS and police. He also directed Feldzug in Polen, glorifying the invasion of Poland, and Die Frontschau, morale films shown to soldiers sent to the Eastern Front. Goebbels eventually dismissed Hitler, citing alcoholism and family issues. After the war, Hitler was interned and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Amin al-Husseini was a Palestinian Arab nationalist who opposed Zionism from the early 1920s and led the Nebi Musa riots, for which he was sentenced but later pardoned. He became the Sunni Muslim cleric in charge of Jerusalem's Islamic holy places and led the Arab Higher Committee during the Arab Revolt. After its suppression, he fled Palestine and eventually landed in Iraq, where he backed the 1941 pro-Nazi coup by Rashid Ali. He issued a fatwa for jihad against the British, and following the coup's failure, the Fahud pogrom erupted in Baghdad. Al-Husseini fled to Berlin and met Hitler in November 1941, aligning himself with Nazi goals against Jews, the British and Bolsheviks. Though Hitler avoided committing to Arab independence, he assured al-Husseini of support after victory in Europe. Al-Husseini then became central to Nazi propaganda targeting the Arab world, broadcasting anti-Semitic and anti-British messages via Arab-language radio and leaflets. He was paid 50,000 Reichsmark per month, when a German field marshal was making 25k a year. Despite his efforts, Nazi influence among Arabs remained limited. Only around 6,300 Arab volunteers trained under the Axis, compared to 9,000 Palestinian Arabs fighting for the British. Al-Husseini even met with Himmler and helped recruit Muslims into the SS, but the Axis propaganda failed to translate into military success. After the war, he was arrested by the French. Mildred Gillars, an American expatriate turned Nazi propagandist, became one of the most notorious voices of Axis radio during World War II. Originally pursuing an acting and modeling career in New York, she moved to Germany and after the war began, was recruited by Goebbels due to her native English fluency. She soon became the highest paid employee at German state radio. In 1942, Gillars was selected to host Home Sweet Home, a radio program aimed at weakening American soldiers' morale by evoking homesickness and fears of infidelity back home. This earned her the nickname Axis Sally. In her broadcasts, she blamed Roosevelt, Churchill, and the Jews for the war. She later hosted The Mic, where American songs were laced with Nazi messaging, and GI's Letterbox and Medical Reports, which targeted American families with unsettling updates supposedly from wounded prisoners of war. Gillars toured prisoner of war camps, recording interviews with captured American soldiers, which were used as psychological warfare in broadcasts. She also used intelligence from these prisoners to send tailored messages home, hoping to deepen anxiety among US families. As Berlin fell in 1945, she continued broadcasting until the last days of the war. She was arrested in Berlin by US authorities and became the first American woman convicted of treason. Heinrich Hoffmann was Hitler's personal photographer and played a key role in shaping Hitler's public image, joining the party in 1920 and participating in the beer hall putsch as a photo correspondent. Hoffmann was granted exclusive rights to photograph Hitler, helping to craft the Führer myth. His photos were central to Nazi propaganda, appearing on stamps, posters, newspapers, and books. He created iconic imagery, including the widely circulated 1914 Odeonsplatz photo and the 1926 Weimar rally shots, which introduced the Nazi salute and helped promote mass rallies. His photo books, like The Hitler Nobody Knows and Youth Around Hitler, were key propaganda tools. Over time, Hoffmann's relationship with Hitler strained due to his alcoholism, eventually leading to his exclusion from Hitler's inner circle. After the war, Hoffmann was convicted of war profiteering and sentenced to 10 years in prison.